Good afternoon and welcome to NASA TV and our Expedition 5253 Crew News Conference. We're here with three veteran space flight astronauts who are getting ready now for their upcoming launch, training for their mission right now. And we have with us today Randy Bresnik, Paolo Nespoli, and Sergey Ryazanskiy. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves briefly, and then we're going to take questions, not only from here in the room and on the phone, but also via social media. You can get your question in by using the hashtag AskNASA. All right, Randy, why don't I let you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Randy Bresnik, Colonel, United States Marine Corps, recently retired after 25 years. Was a combat fighter pilot at flying F-18s, test pilot, and then fortunate to be selected to the 2004 astronaut class. I am the most fortunate man on the planet to be married to the most amazing woman on or off the planet, my wife Rebecca, who happens to join us today. And then also blessed to be a father of a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. And I asked these guys to share at the end of their quick intro about themselves one interesting fact that maybe you wouldn't know about us astronauts. For me, the interesting tidbit I thought I'd share is that I've got a '66 Mustang, Ford Mustang, that I've had for over 30 years now. So. Off to Paolo, one of my amazing crewmates that comes from Italy, and the last thing I'll say is that I'm very fortunate to be flying with such experienced and outstanding people such as Sergey and Paolo.
Thank you, Randy. Yes, I'm Paolo Nespoli, Italian astronaut of the European Space Agency. Actually, we are two foreigners here on this flight, so look at this. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but it was kind of difficult at that time for an Italian, for a non-American. I ended up being drafted with the Italian Army, and I stayed in the Italian Army for quite some years. And then eventually picked up again this childhood dream and got a degree in aerospace engineering, and then continued to apply. Worked first for the European Space Agency, and then fortunate enough in 1998 to be selected as a European astronaut. I flew on a shuttle in 2007, short duration mission to build the International Space Station. Another one in 2010 and 11, a long duration mission. And I'm fortunate enough to be here again now with Randy and Sergey for this new adventure. So looking forward. Special thank. I was thinking about it. I could mention that I have an Italian Moto Guzzi for quite many years, and the factory is not far away from Italy. But I think one of the crazy things is that I like to take things apart and fix them most of the time with some spare things flying around here and there. So I tell people not to show me anything that is broken or anything like this, because I really wanted to start working on it, and sometimes it works. Yeah, exactly.
All right, and Sergey.
My name is Sergey Ryazanskiy. I'm Russian cosmonaut, and to be honest, I never dreamed to become a cosmonaut. I always wanted to be a scientist, so my background is biochemistry, and my PhD is space medicine. And I was working in Institute of Biomedical Problems for almost 14 years, performance science, and accidentally I was I was selected as cosmonaut, and I'm really glad that this nice thing happened. This will be my second flight. My previous mission was with Alec Kotov and Mike Hopkins. I really enjoyed working on board the ISS, so I'm looking forward to work together with such nice team. And something special, I'm first scientist that will become a Soyuz commander.
First scientist to become a Soyuz commander. That is interesting.
And he was already on Mars, by the way.
Okay. Commander of Mars 500, right?
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Right. Okay, so we are going to start taking questions now. We're going to, again, start here in the room with the reporters we've got on hand, and then we'll take some questions from the phone bridge. If we get any reporters who would like to ask questions via phone, you can use the *1, press *1 to actually let us know that you have a question, and if your question gets answered, you can use *2 to withdraw it. And one more reminder, we are going to be taking questions from social media using the hashtag #AskNASA, so get those in as well. We'll start here in the room, and if you can say who you're with and who you want to ask your question to.
Oh, thank you. Mark Carreau with Aviation Week. And I have a question for Randy and Sergey. For Randy, what sorts of activities are you prepared or plan to do for commercial crew enhancement? And for Sergey, are there any activities that you will participate in to prepare for the science module? I think NUACA, if I say it right.
MLM?
No. For the science module.
The Russian science module.
Yeah, MLM.
For the commercial crew, the big things that could possibly be happening during our increment, the main things would be relocating the PMA from where it is over on node 3 over to node 2 on the zenith side, so we can allow for docking of vehicles at that point. And so the work to remove the PMA and then putting it in the node 2 position, they're right now forecasting to be done maybe in the March timeframe, which is a little ahead of us. But depending on the visiting vehicle traffic, bring up the elements that are needed for that, it could slip. Ideally, they would get that done, and then the only things left are things like with the IDA, the docking adapter getting put on that PMA, and the different parts that go to protect the interface between the docking adapter and the PMA. Those are things that could fall into EVAs during our time frame. There's some interior outfitting that goes with that, but ideally that's done before we get there, and that'll allow us to be completely ready. And then obviously we wait. You know, hopefully our commercial providers with Boeing and SpaceX are able to get, ideally it'd be great to see their demo vehicles, but I think with the current schedule, that's probably going to push out beyond our expedition at this point.
What about science model? Really, Russian science model MLM is not a very lucky piece of equipment. It's still sliding a little bit, but for now I received training and certified for a couple EVAs to prepare for MLM arrival, and I'm receiving training on MLM docking. So hopefully our crew, or maybe next crew, finally will see this module arrived on station. It's really nice lab, and looking forward to work on it.
We'll have plenty of work to do regardless,
Yep.
I guess. All right.
Jim Ogert for IEEE Spectrum. I believe you're in a situation, Sergey, where you're in a 2-person Russian segment crew for a while. Could you all of you comment on what the reduction to a 5-person station complement is going to mean for a workload for everybody on the station? Thank you.
Well, it's mostly concerns the Russian program. We will be really busy because there will be only 2 of us. So I have lots of science that is now going into task list. So some experiments that will be done in my free time on board the station. But overall, for life support and for technical issues, 2 Russian crew members will be enough.
On the U.S. side, on board we'll still have 3 U.S. and then up to 4 ideally soon, very soon. The only place where it affected us so much was in the training, where our original Sergey and I originally supposed to launch in November with Expedition 54, 55. Now we're Expedition 52, 53, and we had 3 U.S. crew members that were originally slated for the right seat of Soyuz now have to train for the left seat. And so that's where we take it. It's all pre-flight, and then during the flight we shouldn't see that much difference, other than maybe seeing Sergey and Fyodor a little tireder than they normally would be on orbit.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. You sort of touched a little bit on this in terms of training, but with so many moving parts in terms of when commercial commercial cargo vehicles will arrive, when the Progress will arrive, when you'll actually launch yourself, how has that impacted training in terms of knowing which science payloads will be on board, knowing if you'll do spacewalks, if you don't have to do spacewalks? What's that impact?
Certainly, it's not shuttle, and we've been doing that for quite a few years now, and we know that we're not able to train every specific day and every specific task, and so the training is geared more towards skills-based training, where if we can turn one wrench on this piece of equipment, we can tune it on 100 pieces of equipment. So while it'd be nice to have details, we've been able to structure our training where we're generically ready for any of the space vehicles. If the cargo vehicles slip, if the EVAs slip, if CVLs get moved up, any of that stuff we can pretty much adapt to. And the interesting thing about being in that mindset nowadays is that the just-in-time training has really, really come along. And we're able to get procedures that are tailored for the specific training. They're able to make videos that are tailored and are embedded in the procedure, so you can watch a 20-second or 30-second video of 10 steps of a procedure that gives you the visual of it. And it takes the place of being able to have that repetitive training on the ground to give you that level of experience that you would have normally had on previous training. So that's very helpful. And also even be able to have the people in real time, calm, and experimenting with things like the heads-up display type, like the Google Glass type stuff, where they're able to see what we're doing and be able to talk to us real time, like another crew member who's experienced right there with us while we're putting the hands on the equipment. So things like that really help make up for the fact that there is this fluidity. And I think all of us having been flown crew members before, we're used to things changing. And so we say stand by to stand by, and we'll be prepared for whatever it is, whenever it is, and we'll look to see what flavor it happens to be and execute it the best we can. Anything else to add?
Thank you.
Eric Berger with Ars Technica for Sergey. Just wondering what your experiences were in the Mars 500 mission that you did. What surprised you about that, and what do you think is different about sort of that kind of long duration mission and the 6 months you'll spend on station?
Really, Mars 500 project was interesting, and it brought some valuable experience. First of all, I realized how hard it is to be the boss, to be commander, because you have all this responsibility and trying to negotiate things between your crew members to keep the nice ecological environment inside. Compared with ISS, Mars 500 and future flights to other planets, they are absolutely autonomous. So on ISS, as Randy said, we're able to call to the scientists to the ground. They are always ready to help us. Flying to Mars, you will not have this sort of communication. So that means that crew should be next level of next professional level. The same is for ground support team. They should delegate their responsibility to the crew, and crew should be able to do anything, to make decision. Honestly, when we're working on ISS, like 99% of all decisions are made from our MCCs.
And we're also, to add to that, thankful that, here Sergey is the first scientist commander of a Soyuz, and with his Mars experience and just the good character of the person that he is, he's been an outstanding commander for us to prepare us for our flight on the new Soyuz MS vehicle, and to flex from November with a Japanese crew member to a April, May, now maybe July launch with an Italian crew member, it's been seamless, and we've been ready to go the whole time. So it's really, good testament to Sergey's work ethic and who he is.
And Rita, you've done a couple of analog missions as well, I think Nemo and Caves, right?
Yes.
I know that's not quite the same as Mars, but you probably got some valuable experience from those as well.
Certainly, and that's something that is just so amazing that here on planet Earth, we can go ahead and use these extreme environments to prepare astronauts and people for the training. Space is such a unique experience where you're seeing the curvature of the Earth every time you look out the window, and you're feeling things in your body that you've never felt before in zero G. And it's, it's an assault on the senses, I think we'd all agree, the first time that you do it. And so we're able to use these extreme environments to put groups of astronauts and cosmonauts, now taikonauts, all together, and use experiences like the Nemo mission underwater in the Aquarius habitat off the Florida Keys, the only underwater habitat left in the world for where people can train. You can live down there for we spent a week, and now, we've had 2-week missions. And what that allows you to do is, a lot of people have scuba dove or snorkeled, and you've seen fish and been in the environment, but it's been, maximum 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. Not live there and see the sun go up and down and see how the wildlife, moves and changes, and different creatures adapt, and seeing how the environment is different when you're going out on simulated spacewalks during the daytime and during the nighttime down there. And knowing that even though, surface is only, about 42 feet away, the fact that if you go there, if you have a problem when you're on a spacewalk, it kills you because you get the bends. And so, knowing your equipment, making sure you're doing your buddy checks, making sure, your safety and your emergency training is ready to go to get back into the airlock and back into the habitat where relative safety is, if there's any type of problem. That was the Nemo mission. And the Caves expedition, which was, amazing in the fact that now you're going in, and the base camp, at least for us, because we were the first crew ever to do it, was 1.5 kilometers in from the entrance of the cave. And you're in an environment where it is dark 24 hours a day. You don't know what time it is, just like on space station. You're now constant temperature, constant humidity inside the cave, just like you are on space station. You've got, tethers, and you're rappelling, and you're doing all kinds of things that you're required to attach on for safety, just like you do during a spacewalk. And you're able to do that, and guess what? You're in a cave where there's no paths, no trails, no lights, except what you have on your helmet, and you got to point it to be able to see something just like you do on a spacewalk. And so that realism, and every moment, every step has to be, put precisely, otherwise you slip, and there are consequences to, being in the cave, and you could easily cause a fatal injury if you're not careful in the caves. And so there's all that risk and that heightened sense of awareness of the environment, and then there's the simple fact that it is completely unique. There are very few people that have ever lived and spent a night, let alone a week, in a cave somewhere, in this unique environment, and you're able to take it in and adapt to it, and by the end of the week, be able to operate, and you have some sort of sense of when your batteries are going to run out in your helmet light. You're able to conserve things. It's amazing how much you get used to using the toilet facilities, because that's a unique experience, just like up in space. And so now, I'm getting astronauts through either one of those or both of those. Now they've got a couple of unique extreme experiences they've been through. So when they go to space, it's not the first time they get the assault on the senses and the mind and a picture of something very unique. It's just another one. And so therefore, hopefully they'd be more effective as a crewmate, as well as just as an individual to operate in this unique experience a lot quicker than if they had without that training. Paul, anything else you want to add on Caves?
Well, I've done myself a bunch of these simulated space missions. I mean, the first one in 1990, I was isolated in a small environment with 5 other crew members in a 28-day long-duration mission, and I ended up being the commander, by the way. So I appreciate your difficulty of negotiating what's happening inside with the outside. But the fact of being in an isolated, confined environment where you build up your own reality, that though has to go with the outside. So it's a very interesting learning experience that really pushes your capability and makes you explore more. One of the things that, because I did not do Nemo, I was the ground crew. I did NOLS several times in Alaska. I was up in the mountain, Wyoming, things like this. I did Caves, and that was very interesting. And what got me there in Caves was the fact that at a certain point, I don't know how far away you went from base camp, but we ended up going really, really, really deep from base camp. And we were like 10 hours away, literally soaking wet, cold because it's low temperature. And still, we wanted to push to see what's beyond that rock or under that tunnel. We wanted to push this sense of discovery that we have as human, the thing that you have, and the fact that you really need to make sure that you have enough strength, enough capability to go back to base camp, because this discovery thing is so strong on us that makes you forget about everything else. So that was a really interesting discovery for me. But we discovered all sorts of other things, and I'm grateful for these experiences that at the end prepare us to go in space in a much better conditions.
Well, and then just taking that a step farther, I guess, the space station itself is kind of meant to be an analog for going to Mars or further longer duration missions further into the solar system. I know there's probably a few things on y'all's science radar that is meant to find out what kind of changes on the body we should expect and things like that. Do you think is that something you think about? You've been there for a long duration already, Paolo. Do you?
Too, yeah. Say it again, the question, sorry.
Do you think about that a lot, about how this could be like going to Mars?
Well, for sure, it's building up the knowledge that we absolutely need before we push forward outside Earth. I absolutely concur with what Sergey said before about the fact that a mission to Mars requires a level of redundancy in the hardware, a level of capability of decision by the crew, a level of autonomous operational capabilities today we don't have on station, we don't need on station, and we are focused mostly on science and acquiring information now. But later on, when we push, when we go, as I said, in the cave, and you want to push, and you start forgetting that, you keep pushing, but you have to come back sooner or later. I think all those experiences that we do on space station are extremely important to give us the basis to keep going forward later.
All right, we are going to go to the phone now for a minute. I think we have space.com online. If you can go ahead and ask your questions now. We'll maybe come back to space.com. How about Christian Alexanderson?
Great, thanks so much. I was just wondering, wristwatches play an interesting part in the history of space travel. I was hoping you could tell me which wristwatches you guys are going to be bringing up to space and why.
Wristwatches?
Wristwatch.
All right.
Well, I happen to be wearing my Speedmaster, what is it, 2 or 3? Is that? I don't know.
Something like that.
It's the Omega Speedmaster, the one that's, that American astronauts have been wearing for decades now when they travel to space. This one flew with me an STS-129. It was a gift from my wife. Thank you. This time I got one, and don't tell anyone because it's a secret, but I've got one for my son. He's 10 years old, and my hope is that when he graduates from high school, I can give it to him as a gift, having had a few million miles on it.
Well, time in space, and especially on long duration, my experience is very, very difficult to handle. And in fact, I ended up, when I was in space, having 2 watches, and people ask me, why do you have 2? And in fact, I had 3 on. One here, and one attached there. Because I needed to keep track of so many times, what time is in Italy, what time is in the United States, what time is on the space station. And they keep changing the time, by the way, so I would get totally confused. The watches like this are very confusing in space because you look and you don't know it's 1 o'clock during the day or 1 o'clock during the night, and it's very, very confusing. So I'm still looking around. I will bring up in space several watches this time just to play with them. I would like to have my own. We even have some, of course, being the space station, we cannot bring up whatever we want. I would love to bring one of those modern watches where you have a link with the computer, different type of batteries, but there are all sorts of things of safety issues with that. So I will experiment a little bit. One of the things that I'm having one watch personalized with my name at the end, and I will bring up that one just to give it around. And it's a secret, but I should give one for my wife, but don't tell her.
Russian cosmonauts also use Omega watches, and really, I don't care. They just need to work properly. I like that.
All right. Okay, and I think we have some special guests in the room that we're going to talk to. One of Randy's particular interest in when he's on orbit is going to be, I believe, photography. So we've invited some local photographers to come and ask questions if they had any. And just another reminder that we are also taking questions via social media at Ask NASA. You can use the hashtag Ask NASA on Twitter, and we'll take a look at those questions and try and get a few of them answered before the end of the day. All right, do we have any questions from here in the room about?
Hi, my name is Jamara Cuffey, and I'm a hobbyist photographer. I saw in a note that you've taken pictures all over the world, and while you're on the space station, you plan to photograph those areas from space. When you match them up, will you be sharing them on social media or putting together a book that we can see later? How can we see when you match those pictures?
The intent and the hope of the project is to be able to send out the pictures together, over social media. The genesis behind the project is I've been a photographer for my whole life. My grandfather was a professional photographer, so I kind of grew up with a camera in my hands, and that was kind of a normal thing for me as a kid. It wasn't a bicycle or a baseball mitt. First thing I ever bought was a Pentax ME Super, and I still got it today. Oh, all right. So we're dating ourselves, and I still have it in all the lenses, and that was normal. And so, I've been very fortunate to be able to travel and see the world and to be able to photograph its beauty. And we always say that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we do that from space, and we have these wonderful images, but it's from our perspective in space only, and people can see it. But my hope is that by sending out a picture of a place from space and a picture from the ground as well, taken with the same set of eyes, that people will be able to that are from that area will go, hey, I recognize that place, and then they're able to see their place from space, and then the people who are not from that place will look at it from space, go, that's beautiful, and they look at it from the ground, go, wow, that's beautiful, and then maybe they'll want to go there and then make the world a little smaller of a place. So that's the hope.
We'll share this again at the end of the hour, but Randy is on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, all with the hashtag AstroComrade, KOMRADE. So you can look for him there for those photos, and I'm sure others. And we've got some accounts for the rest of the crew as well. Paolo's on Twitter at Astro_Paolo, the Paolo, and Sergey is on Twitter at Ryazanskiy_ISS, and that is spelled RYAZANSKIY at ISS for International Space Station. We'll go over those again at the end, but I think hopefully we'll be seeing lots from all of you on social media. Do you want to talk about any of your own personal pursuits or things you'll do in your spare time?
Well, I really like to make photos, and from my previous mission I brought more than 65,000 photos, and just nowadays I'm working on a book with photos and stories. Personally, I prefer Instagram because it's easier to share your visual experience with small notes. But now we have so many different social media channels. I will try to use most popular. And by the way, my younger sister is helping me a lot with sharing all this on social media and preparing the book. It's really important and really necessary to try to share all these wonderful things that you can see from above. Sometimes it's impossible even with the photos because it's much more beautiful or three-dimensional. But still, we should try. We should try to share our experience with other people that maybe in future will have a chance also to fly and will have a dream to fly to space.
Paolo, anything you'd share?
Well, we were talking about photography, and photography was also one of my passions when I was still young. And actually, I would even say that if today I'm an astronaut, probably I owe also to having a camera and being in certain strange places at a certain strange times. In any case, I took quite some pictures last time I was in space, and I'm looking forward to be able to do it again. I think the capability of seeing the Earth in this special way when you are rotating around the Earth, and in an hour and a half, you essentially go around it. And I always tell people, if you have an hour and a half today, and you are here, you can probably take the picture of the center around here with the sun at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you are on the space station, you have an hour and a half, and you go to the cupola, you're actually seeing a night and a day and 4 seasons and 5 continents and all the oceans. So it's incredible, and it becomes a different way of taking pictures. You know, it's like you see something and you better grab the camera and take the picture there because it's going to last that picture's like a few seconds and then it's gone, and it may repeat, may not. So it's a very good, impressive capability that you get in space, and it's one of the things that I think will make the space travel appealing to tourists, because that's the only place where you can see the Earth like that. And by the way, this viewing the Earth with this way, I personally think it eventually makes you a better terrestrial person. So paradoxically, you need to go outside of the Earth to appreciate the Earth in a new way. So.
Sure. Well, give us just a minute to get the microphone back over here. It sounds like we've got lots of good photos to look forward to on y'all's mission. That'll be great. And for those of you who do follow NASA on social media, I think we have an Instagram story going on today about photography from space and multiple different aspects of that. That's really interesting that you should check out. And let's go to this photo, this question.
To follow up on the photos from space, of course, you all carry much better instruments than the cameras, and that's your own eyes. But I haven't seen myself yet, but I've been told that there's actually an adjustment period on a flight in which, after a number of hours of looking out, your brain suddenly gets it, and you see much more sharply. You see them in 3 dimension. Can each of you describe how that has happened to you with this adjustment period, and how a tourist, for example, could short-circuit that process so that they could perhaps plan on the ground, to practice on the ground, to be ready to see space as soon as they get there?
Any thoughts?
Well, what happened to me is that you are in space, and you know that you're so excited. You are in space, and I still remember the first time I flew on the shuttle. I was downstairs, so no window. I was working 4 hours. Finally, everything is ready, and before going to bed, I want to take a peek outside. And I went up, and I saw these huge blue things, and that's it. That's all I saw. And then I said, interesting. So next morning, I wake up, I go up, blue things again. So before I started seeing things, it took quite some time. And it was incredible. Instead, on the space station, that the same thing happened. And you look outside, and you don't understand where you are. It's difficult even to make out the land from so. But suddenly, after a while, for some reason, you get this click thing, and you know where you are. It happened to me many times. I just look out of the window and I know, oh, that's Australia. And it takes several weeks, by the way. It takes, like, I would say, a month before you, or even more, before you get to that point where you actually know where you are. You just take a quick peek, and you're over Africa, over Europe. And not only that, you start processing your orbit, and you know that if now you are over, let's say, Africa, in 5 minutes, you're going to be over Europe. So if I want to take a picture of Italy, which I'm pretty much interested on, I better prepare so you get this consciousness of where you are and how the orbit happens, including the fact that you're going to be able to take certain things, and you already tried, but there were clouds, so maybe this time no clouds, or the sun. What time of the day it is? It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Ooh, it's going to be the sun in a certain angle, and all of this kind of come together. At least that was my experience, and so if I look at my pictures that I took towards the end of the mission, were completely different than the one that I took at the beginning. Because at the beginning it looks like we're just snapping stuff and didn't know what was going on. So.
Okay, you're indicating it's happened to you.
Yeah, but this is because of your everyday work, and you're working on trying to understand what the hell is there. Really, because we have some ecological science projects. We are investigating rains, tornadoes, and some other things. And it's really difficult from the beginning to understand where is everything. But training your eye day by day, you receive the result. Maybe couple of weeks.
Yeah, it
takes 3 or 4.
How many hours of looking out in that couple of weeks? Is that 5-10 hours worth?
Well, every moment free time you have, you're looking outside.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult for a tourist that goes out for a day or two to actually get this. But it's also different because my primary task is not to go up there and look out of the window and see what's going on, so I'm concentrated on something else. And I think if I would fly as a tourist, by the way, I'm looking forward to fly as a tourist. Everybody says, "Oh, this is going to be your last flight," and I say, "Who said that?" In 20 years, maybe I got enough money and I still have enough health that I could fly in space this time as a tourist, and. I would make people concentrate on what they want to see. Understanding these orbit things. You can understand what comes before. You can practice with a map. You can do a few things to accelerate this process of acquiring this understanding. I think though, it would probably take some time. So
I was there for an 11-day mission. So I didn't have a, aha moment where things suddenly click. So, I was only up there for that long. For me, it wasn't such a visual acuity change. It was just the mental grasping where you are. I mean, to get up there on orbit and have the main engines cut off, things start floating, and all of a sudden you can see the curvature of the Earth, and the whole horizon. Well, as you see me do this in the picture, your mind can exactly extrapolate what the rest of that circle is. And all of a sudden, for the first time in your life, the Earth is very finite, and it is just out here in front of you, and it's only this big. And every human that's ever lived throughout human history, and every experience you've ever had your entire life is happening on this little thing that's only this big in front of you, and you're going around every 90 minutes. That, humbling and just visually amazing thing is what I think is, one of the biggest things to grasp when tourists first get up there for that first impression. I think being familiar with the Earth before you go is the thing that would make it easiest. On our last EVA, Bobby Satcher and I were coming inside and we're coming down the CETA spur, connecting the truss back to the airlock, and it's just basically a handrail like you see the truss up in this room where you're maneuvering down. There's nothing underneath you as you're crossing the gap between the segments.
But there's the Earth.
Well, other than the Earth, yeah, 20 to 250 miles below you. And we're coming down, we just happen to be going right over the South Island of New Zealand. And I can look down, and the mission control heard me say, "Hey, Bobby, there's the Franz Josef Glacier." And I get back later, and they're like, "How did you know that?" Well, my wife and I had been there, a couple years prior. And so we had seen that. And that'll be one of the pictures I'll if I can get that picture from space, I'll send out the picture from the ground with it so people can see that. And, people in mission control are like, "These astronauts know everything." No, I just happen to have been there.
All right, I think we have a question back here, and then we're going to go back to the phone bridge briefly.
Hi, I'm Leslie with Houston Photographic Society, and I actually have two questions. The first one is for Randy, and then the next one would be for all three. But going back, you were a cavenaut, aquanaut, and astronaut on space station. I was wondering, what were the parallels with each of those experiences? We touched on the differences earlier, but were there any parallels in living in an environment like that for an extended period of time, or something that surprised you that you didn't ever think about, but except when you were going through those situations?
I think it wasn't said by me. Someone else, others said this before. The first day in space, you're looking for your hometown, and then by the second day in space, you're just looking, for your home country. And by the third day, you're looking at Earth, spaceship Earth, as a human being, and you're looking at it globally. And humans, we share experiences. By just us talking to you guys, we're able to share the experience that we were fortunate enough to see in space, because we've only had 550-something humans ever go to space. And now being married and having kids, when I do stuff, I feel like it doesn't exist unless I can share it with them. And that's, I think a lot of us feel that tie. That's why I think social media is such a draw to people these days, because you're able to share your experiences with them. And the parallel, I think, for all three of the cave, the underwater, and the orbit, was just the absolute beauty of the Earth. And you want to take the pictures because you see that with your mind's eye, and you want to at least try and share it in some manner, even if it's just a two-dimensional thing that's only this big, to show people what that beauty is. I've done a presentation at schools and with other groups of people where I take a picture from space, from underwater in the cave, and show you just how water looks so absolutely mesmerizing and beautiful in the blue of waters. In all three of those different areas, even though they're completely, extremely different, the beauty is still the same, and just as wonderful, and something you want to share with people.
The next question for any or all was, what are the noticeable differences, perhaps, with training now for going to the space station as opposed to when you've previously trained? And what are, I would think, some of the improvements that have been made over the years that maybe took a lot longer than they do now?
I would think one of the major changes is the fact that, especially here at NASA, they used to plan shuttle missions, which were very condensed, incredibly full series of activities, and had to be planned minute by minute and required a high coordination. In fact, we used to measure it time by MET, mission elapsed time, and that was the timeline. You look how long, how far you have launched and what you're supposed to do, let's say 15 hours after you launched. And they started planning the space station mission in this way, and then they realized that this doesn't work, because there's always something that happens. And we used to be training the shuttle in that way. You train every single minute of what is happening. We started the space station training in that way, and it turns out that you need to train like for 15 years, and then you still don't know because things are changing. So we went away from this kind of training to the what's it called, skills-based training, where you train to operate with a certain piece of equipment, not necessarily what you're going to do, but a certain piece of equipment. You train to operate in general, doing science experiments in biology or anything, and then toward the last part of your training, you see specifically what you're going to do, but you're not focusing totally on that. You're focusing on being able to do a lot of things there. I think this is the first thing. The second one that I would say is that we look a little bit more now about the composition of the crew, make sure that the crew works, is able to work together, because again, you're not alone up in space, you are in an isolated and confined environment. It's not that I can get away from these guys up there for 6 months. So we better be very comfortable with each other and have an environment that make us work together, including, by the way, the ground team, which in a certain way it's extremely important to make the success of a mission. And this capabilities, this awareness, I think is much more present now than it was in the early days of space station.
I think, and another thing to add to that, we're doing training, flying with our Russian partners on the Soyuz, and so this time, from my previous flight, I'm 60% of my time in the past year and a half has been in Russia, training for that Soyuz flight and on the Russian segment, and from speaking from the early expeditions, with Expedition 1, 16 years ago, and all the time they spent in training, technology has allowed us, while we're in training, to be a lot more connected to back home. With your family, whether it's just simply email or phone calls, or the fact that you've got now things like Skype and FaceTime, where you're actually visually able to see your family and be much more connected. Well, those things on space as well also help you feel much less isolated. And so the training is different, but yet we have really allowed people to be a lot more connected to what anchors them and what's important to them while they're doing it, whether that be in training or in space, which is going to be a huge part of when we start going beyond low Earth orbit and outside the point where when we look back to the Earth, it not only doesn't fit under our thumb, Earth is just a star that we see in the sky as we get closer to Mars. And you suddenly are not seeing that beautiful spaceship Earth that everything is on and love, is there. And how are we going to psychologically deal with that and keep our crew members grounded and connected, with what's important to them?
Okay, we're going to go back to the phone bridge, and then we'll come and take some social media questions. So be sure and send your questions in using the hashtag AskNASA. But for now, let's hear from space.com again.
Hi, this is Hanukkah Weidering with Space.com. My question is mainly for Sergey, but Randy and Paolo are welcome to answer as well. So what are some of the scientific research projects that you are looking forward to working on at the space station? And will any of that work relate to some of the research you've done previously in your career as a scientist?
During our mission, we will have lots of different science projects. And they're equal for each of us. So my background is biology, but I will have some experiments in physics, in chemistry. But of course, I'm mostly interested in biology and medicine. So hopefully we will have experiment Sarcolab, which is joint experiment with our European colleagues, and that's really close to that question of muscle physiology that I was researching during my PhD work. So looking forward to working with Paolo as a test subject and hopefully myself. Also, we have several such type of experiments on Russian side, so I will be working on them also. So, but still, our science program is really different and I think interesting.
And the neat part about what the science that's going on the space station, we've been up there for 16 years, continuously manned on the space station, over 2,300, experiments and things that have gone on during that time frame. And it doesn't matter what crew is up there or what crew's in training, the science keeps going. And our launch dates may change and people may shift and all that kind of stuff, but the science keeps going. And so while ideally, you're a little more scheduled or a little more settled on the schedule and you have a more specific idea of the experiments. We moved around a little bit, so we're still kind of waiting to see where the dust settles and what exactly will be up there in the time frame that we're there. But we've been trained and we're prepared to execute whatever the science experiments are that are up there in our time frame.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully my colleague here, Haley Fick, has some questions here from social media.
So we've heard from all of you about how you plan to use social media. We have a question from Gavin Morrow on Twitter, and he asks, Mr. Bresnik, how did you pick your Twitter handle? I'm guessing there's a story there.
The Comrade was my fighter pilot call sign from back in the early 90s when I started flying F-18s. Typically you get a call sign, from either something to do with your name or something that you've done stupid. That's just, there's a guy who held the brakes while he was on the catapult on the aircraft carrier, and so as soon as the catapult launched, it blew both his tires. He got a call sign, bam, bam. So mine, I didn't do anything stupid enough, and so when I got to the start F-18s, they said Bresnik, and then some, more experienced guy said, hey, Bresnik, that sounds like Brezhnev, Comrade Brezhnev. Okay, all right, Comrade, that's it, you're Comrade. And then, fortunately, the next 25 years of flying, I didn't do something stupid to get a new one. So that's kind of stuck, and it's strange coming here to NASA where it's not the military. I first got here and people would, call out, hey, Randy, and I'd be looking around because for, a decade and a half, everybody was calling me Comrade. It was also fun when I first got to space station, my crewmates, on STS-129 were calling me Comrade, and a few of them had their own call signs. And we get on the space station, and I've got Max Saryev and Roman Romanenko, and they're floating around, and, I hear one of my guys go, hey, Comrade, and you see them kind of turn their head,
That's a great story. So you've touched on staying connected with your family, but this user, Andrew Malaro on Twitter, wants to know, do any of the astronauts have pets, and can they talk to them on the webcam as well?
Pets?
We have a dog named Stormy. She's a 9-year-old mini Shar-Pei, blue Shar-Pei. We've tried it. I'd be in Russia via FaceTime and Skype on with the kids. She doesn't get the whole two-dimensional thing. She hears the sound and you see her looking around, but she doesn't come up and look into the thing, kind of like she doesn't get the whole TV thing. I have seen dogs that do get it, but she's not one of them. So I'll be able to see her, but she won't probably participate in that.
We do have fish, so a couple of fish, so it's kind of going to be difficult to talk to them. But I guess I will have already my hands full in trying to talk to my kids, which, my son picks up the phone when I call my wife and will answer. I will not give the phone to her and not saying anything. Hello, Papa. Hello, Papa. He's a 3-year-old guy, so it's going to be something like this in space, I guess.
Awesome. So we have one more question from M. Rigel Cheshire on Twitter, and he asked, what is it like to be cramped in the Soyuz for 2 days before entering the ISS?
You didn't do 2 days.
Yeah.
I am the only one.
Okay.
Hopefully, our crew, again, as my previous flight, we will have fast rendezvous. So it will be 6 hours. And how you feel 2 days in Soyuz, you can ask Paolo.
Well, I actually had this experience, and yeah, it's not that comfortable. I mean, I think the worst part is when you're actually strapped in for launch and entry, and especially so where you are really sitting in your seat in a fetal position, all hunkered down. That's uncomfortable. But when you are actually in space and for 2 days, we used to be there because you need to acquire data to point your spacecraft to the space station. Now the Soyuz can do it by itself, so we don't need to do that anymore. It's actually not that bad. Space is small or something, but you get to stretch a little bit and you get to eat something. I heard Scott Kelly that said, I know now how a cat feels. You wake up a little bit, you eat something, you go to sleep. Then you go to sleep again. Then you wake up. Then you listen to the radio what they talk, and then you'll sleep a little bit. It's actually not a bad time because you get to space, you're really tired. I mean, it's a really, really, really long day. Your body is going through all these changes of this sensation. It's kind of crazy. And some people got to say that it's not bad, the fact that you have a few hours where you can really do nothing, just hang around there. And so I would say it's not the best time, but it's not bad either.
And after having spent a few hundred hours now in a Soyuz next to Sergey, doing our training in the simulators and everything, I give a lot more credit to the early cosmonauts and astronauts when they were flying these flights. And for me, the one that stands out it was the Gemini mission. I think it was Tom Stafford and Jim Lovell, 2 weeks in a Gemini capsule. If people don't know what that's like, go Google it and see how much space there was. They're basically their seats, and that was it for 2 weeks.
They could go into their refrigerator and close the door and be there for 2 weeks. You know? Maybe shut it off before.
But I mean, it's amazing what these early pioneers did in space exploration. And for whatever part it is that we're doing in that step of humans going into another terrestrial body, we hope that we're doing our part to further the advance of our species exploring the solar system and the universe.
All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking with you. I learned a lot, but we're just about out of time now. So we're going to wrap it up by letting you know that you can keep up with the all the news on the space station and what's going on up there at www.nasa.gov/station. And again, to give you an idea of how you can follow along with these guys while they're training and then when they get to space, again, their social media accounts for Randy Bresnik is @AstroComrade, and he is on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so you'll want to keep an eye on all three of those. For Paolo, he is on Twitter, and you can find him at @Astro_Paolo. And then finally, Sergey, also on Twitter, is @Ryazanskiy_ISS, and that is for International Space Station. Thanks so much for joining us today, and you can keep, again, keeping up with not only all of this, but other NASA news at nasa.gov/station.
Thank you.